tragedies like school shootings happen because we've taken God out of the public schools. People ask, where is God? The answer, of course, a liberal Supreme Court removed him from our classrooms.
Well, there is something called the First Amendment. You know, Congress not respecting the establishment of religion. Besides, you can still pray in schools at mealtimes and among friends. It's just not allowed to be mandated by the state.
I don't remember this problem with violence when I was in school. Teachers still prayed with their students and said prayers before football games. The problem started when prayer and God were removed from public schools. We lost our sense of morality. Bringing God back into our schools and teaching our children to fear God and say the Pledge of Allegiance will help eliminate this problem of guns in schools.
Do you think perhaps that part of the blame lies with the gun lobby pushing for more lax regulations and buying off politicians? The NRA is the most powerful lobby in Washington.
It is our right to bear arms according to the Second Amendment.
Yes, we have the right to protect property and person. Guns were intended for our militias to fight against invaders, foreign and domestic. I got that. But we need common sense gun control, the types that prevent such tragedies that happen today.
The founders didn't say anything about regulations.
They didn't anticipate mass shootings with semi-automatics. Arms were intended to be used in case of invasion. We need to apply some reason to this. We need strict gun controls.
We have laws already.
How effective are they? Any nutball with money can get a gun off the street or at a gun show.
Can you tell a nutball out of a crowd?
We need more safeguards and enforcement of gun laws. In addition, we need to regulate guns the way we do other consumer products. We need to regulate who owns one and how many. People need to know how to drive before getting a license and proving themselves to be responsible. Can you imagine how the NRA would react if such strict regulations were applied for gun ownership and use?
The right to drive is not in the Constitution.
Does that mean gun control shouldn't apply based on that? There are a lot of things that weren't conceived of by the founders. Mass shootings and gang violence among them. Did the founders intend us to pray for solutions instead of solving them ourselves?
Our founders did conceive this country being a Christian nation. We removed God from our public schools. And why would God go where he wasn't wanted? That's why these tragedies happen.
So, are you suggesting that God allows children to be murdered because he feels unwanted? Are you serious?
It is because we've removed him by eliminating prayer in schools. How can he hear prayers if they could not be said in the first place? God does not force his will on us.
You think bringing state-mandated prayers back in school will eliminate gun violence, even with no new regulations? Do you believe men with murder on their minds and easy access to guns will have a change of heart?
As I said, God goes where he's wanted.
Really? A world history of bloodshed proves you're wrong about that. What about the people who prayed to God to ease their suffering in concentration camps and prisons? People who prayed for food to alleviate hunger and cures for their sicknesses?
God never promised us a life without hardships. That's why we must pray for forgiveness and salvation in order to be received unto a better life in paradise.
In other words, there's no guarantee God will come through, even with prayer. So what difference does it make if prayer is mandated in schools?
The founders were Christian and intended for this to be a Christian nation. Because we strayed away from that principle, we end up with tragedies like what happened today.
The Establishment Clause says, wait a minute. Didn't we already have this conversation?